Minecraft Xbox 360 Edition came out on May 9th, 2012. It's been 13 years since then, and Minecraft has changed a lot, adding things like foxes, netherite, and an entirely different cave system. But I want to go back to Title Update 18 for 100 days and see what I can do. After making a new world and spawning, I get out my map to find out where I am. I wanted to build my base at the center of the map. After getting there, I start hitting my first tree and craft a wooden pickaxe. I mine some stone and craft a stone pickaxe. After finding iron, I smelt it and make an iron pickaxe and an iron sword. After mining down a little further, I come across a cave. Killing a couple skeletons, I explored a little further in the cave to find a mob spawner. Unfortunately, I died. However, Legacy Edition doesn't have a hardcore mode, so I don't really care if I die. After traveling back to the mine and getting my stuff back, I go back to the mob spawner and light up the area. Checking the chest, I find 2 books, one with Unbreaking 1 and another with Efficiency 2. Even though it is night, I go out to kill a few animals for food and continued to mine down to Y level 12. The reason I chose Y level 12 is because lava spawns at that level, so I won't run into lava while I'm trying to mine. While mining, it turns to day 2. After strip mining for a while, I end up finding diamonds. Going back up to the surface, I make myself a diamond pickaxe and sword. I made stairs from my mine and go back mining until day 3. While down in the mine, I collect 4 blocks of obsidian so that I can craft an enchantment table. When I get back to the surface, I'm missing paper for books, even though I have enough leather. After collecting some sugarcane, I make the paper and craft the enchantment table. After that, I craft some iron armor and place the extra sugarcane next to some water. I collect some seeds from grass and make an iron hoe to plant them. Coming out of the mine is turning day, and I go to do some chores like taking care of my sugarcane. When all of a sudden, out of the corner of my screen, I somehow didn't see a creeper. I get some dirt to fill the hole made. I go back to the mine to start making this hole more of a home. I start by making the walls further apart and making a turn so that I can make part of the base at 0, 0. After about 10 minutes, this is what the entrance to the mine looks like. Starting day 5, I work on the base a little more and tame a wolf. I decided to fill out some of the map and came across the desert. I collected a bunch of sand and came back home to smelt it into glass. Taking the extra dirt that I got, I decided to outline the next project I was building. I started at 0, 0 and slowly made a circle out of the dirt. I went down to the house to continue going closer to the new dirt I placed. While mining, it turned to day 6, and I went back to the surface to replace the sand that fell after I dug into the outline I made. After it was dug deep enough, I tunneled from the entrance to the dirt I placed. When it turned dark, I killed a bunch of mobs and even found an enderman that dropped an ender pearl. I ended day 6 by chopping some trees. On days 7 and 8, I got a couple of pork chops. I cooked them and went to fill out more of my map. I started by going north, then went west. Along the way, I found a hills biome, which will be useful for emeralds, a jungle biome that had a temple. Unfortunately, it didn't have anything good. I also found a mushroom island and a snow biome. I spent the morning of day 9 still mining until my pickaxe broke. When I got back to the surface, I started smelting cobblestone into regular stone. Then I made a new pickaxe and started mining again. After mining a few diamonds, I came back up to the surface to fight mobs. While fighting, I noticed that zombie villagers could spawn. This will be extremely useful in the future because my world didn't spawn a village. For now, I dug a hole for him so I could come back later. While fighting some mobs, I managed to get a skeleton to kill a creeper, and I got myself a disc called Ward. As the sun rose, it marked the beginning of day 10. I went back home to put away all the stuff I had gathered and began crafting stone bricks. I'd come up with a castle design for my home. It was going to look like a watchtower, but it would also serve as a waypoint so that I could always find home easily. So I started placing down the walls. When I was done with the bottom portion, it kind of looked like one of those wells they put in dams. Now that it is night again, I found more mobs in the desert. The reason why I fight there is because there's a limited number of mobs that can be spawned in the desert. That limit won't be filled up by dogs, cows, sheep, and pigs because they aren't able to spawn in the desert. I also checked on the zombie I had left, but he unfortunately despawned. Trying to get another disc, the creeper I was fighting blew up. When I went to check the hole it made, I fell into a ravine and barely survived by 1 block. Of course, I calmly made stairs back to the surface where I patched up the hole until another creeper showed up. At that point, I knew when to call it quits. As the sun rose, day 11 started, and I went back home. I started to add more to the build by making 2 spiral staircases up. In the scientific community, this is called a double helix, and is the shape of DNA. After it had started getting dark, I went back to the desert to fight some more mobs. I successfully got 3 music discs called Cat, 13, and Maul. I also fought an Enderman and got another Ender Pearl. Day 12 began, and I started working on the tower again. This time I covered the sides until I reached the top. I also used torches to light up the inside of the tower so that mobs wouldn't spawn on the inside. I spent most of the night adding glass to the sides and cobblestone stairs as a trim to the peak of the tower. I began day 13 by looking at the tower, and it's safe to say it does not look good, even for my standards. So I removed the top windows and took another look, but it still looked off. So I removed the front window and added a balcony with these cobblestone fences as supports and wooden fences as a guardrail. Altogether, I think it ended up looking very good. After working on my balcony, it became night, and so I went back to the desert and fought mobs again. After a while, I came back to the tower and worked on the trim. Something about it looked off, like a bowl cut on a kid. After finishing up taking off the trim, it turned to day 14. I added these pillars and think that if I added netherrack with fire, it would look really good. If I wanted that netherrack, I needed a nether portal to get it. So I went down to the mine to get some obsidian, but I also got sidetracked and got diamonds. After coming out of the mine, it was day 15. However, I didn't want to use my obsidian just yet because I wanted to put my nether portal in a good spot. I crafted flint and steel, but I still needed a good spot to build the portal. After looking around, I thought the interior portion of the ring I mined to get to the tower would be a good spot. However, the ring wasn't completely finished, so I spent the rest of the day making the tunnels of the ring complete. I started out day 16
by working on the house.
On day 17,
by working on the house again.
As the sun rose for the 18th time, I began working
by working on the house.
After I finished digging out the interior, I broke into the tower and placed the nether portal. Finally went to the nether, and I spawned on the edge of a cliff. But next to it was another fortress. I immediately came across multiple blazes. I decided to go back home. I made sure to grab 8 netherrack. I immediately placed the netherrack on top of the pillars and lit them on fire. I remembered that I needed to get enchantments, so I also placed the enchantment table and bookshelves on the right corner next to the nether portal. However, I didn't have enough bookshelves to enchant at level 30. For day 19,
by working on
so I ended up going to the mine and I mined out a huge portion of area. I continued to mine into day 20. When I went back to the surface, I chopped down a ton of trees that were around me, and I went back to the mine to mine more of the chunk. Then I placed more torches around the base and made another bookshelf. On day 21, I made enough bookshelves to get level 30 enchantments. Unfortunately, in this version, when you enchant something, it uses all 30 levels. And with this pickaxe, I only got on breaking 3. However, remember the enchantment books I got from the mob spawner? I ended up making an anvil and used the efficiency 2 book on it. After enchanting the pickaxe, I continued to mine the chunk out. On day 22, I decided that the chunk was big enough. I went to widen the stairs so that they were the same 2-block length as the entrance. I placed the stairs and the way down was now very convenient. When it turned night, I went back to the desert to get more experience, and I ended up getting another disc called 11. After fighting mobs all night, I started day 23 by making a farm out of cobblestone fence. I got cows and sheep and started breeding them. Once it got dark, I went to find endermen so that I could get ender pearls. I killed 3 of them and none of them gave me anything. After a disappointing night, I decided to craft a couple of eyes of ender, and using the first one at the center of the world, I know that the stronghold would be in the bottom left corner of the world. After exploring, I got to an ocean and thought if I got to somewhat the center of this corner, I could find which direction again with the Eye of Ender. After traveling in the ocean for ages, I got to somewhat the center of this corner and through the Eye of Ender. I found that I needed to go back to where I was before and through another. I found the stronghold pretty easily after that, and I dug down until I came to some bricks. After exploring a bunch of the layout, I found the end portal. Coming back up to the surface, I head back home. On day 25, I bred the cows and sheep and went mining the rest of the day. Day 26, I chop more trees that are around the base. I craft a clock so that I can keep track of time. I tame another dog and go to the desert to get cactus for dye. At the end of the day, I enchant my diamond sword and get knockback 2 and Bane of Arthropods 4. On day 27, I go back to the mine and get diamonds out of the chunk that I'm mining, but I'm gonna save them until I get fortune on my pickaxe. After taking another piece of the chunk out, I went back up and worked on making an XP farm out of the skeleton spawner. I dug out some of the area and added water so that when the skeletons spawn, they fall into the water. I kept working on it through day 28 until I finally got it to a design that I like and works. After finishing it, I spent the rest of the night getting XP from the farm. I start day 29 by changing the XP farm so that the skeletons will fall and take damage so that they're easier to kill. After changing the XP farm, I go back to the surface and enchant a new diamond pickaxe that has efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3. This is better than my other pickaxe, but I still don't have fortune. After getting the new pickaxe, I finish the night off by mining. Day 30, I'm still mining. After a while, I go back to the surface to go to the nether. I go to the fortress to get more blaze rods and nether warts. I go back to the overworld and make a brewing stand. I make a couple of glass bottles, fill them with water, put them in the brewing stand with nether wart, and start making a potion. I was trying to make a potion of weakness because I could cure the zombie villagers. That way I'd have some villagers to trade with. I thought it took a spider eye, but that only made a potion of poison. Then I remembered that you needed a fermented spider eye. So I got some sugar and a mushroom and crafted the fermented spider eye. I also crafted a couple of golden apples. I spent the rest of the night killing mobs in the desert and unfortunately didn't find any zombie villagers. As the sun rose for day 31, I went back home to complete the achievement for building a dispenser. I then built a piston and collected a leaf block with shears and made a redstone device to see underground. I spent the rest of the night fighting mobs in the desert and looking for a zombie villager. For day 32, I went back home to get the Eyes of Ender that I had and crafted some other ones with the ender pearls and blaze powder I had. I went back to the stronghold and put the Eyes of Ender into the end portal frame. Then I went back home to do some mining. When it had turned night, I went to the desert to find a villager and to get some XP. In the morning of day 33, I got some flowers and made dyes for my dog's collars. While getting getting the flowers, I found 2 more wolves and tamed them. I then sat them next to my other dogs at home. I went around and found chickens to put in my farm. To end the day, I went to the top of the tower and watched the sunset. At night, I went back to the desert. Unfortunately, again, I didn't find any zombie villagers. On day 34, I farmed for XP and got to level 30. So I went and enchanted my diamond sword. I got sharpness 4 and fire aspect 2. These are good enchantments, but it definitely could be better. I went out at night, and to my surprise, after days of trying, I had finally found a zombie villager. But now I had to wait for it to turn back. After he became a villager, it turned out he had been a priest, which is fine by me. I decided to spend the rest of the night continuing to fight mobs, but again, another zombie villager. I think I used all the luck I had that day. After turning him back to a villager, day 35 has a beautiful sunrise, and the villager was a farmer. I decided to go back home and mine as well as think about what I was going to do with those villagers. I ended up thinking so much that it became day 36 while mining. I went mining for iron mostly because I need to build plenty of rails so that I can move the villagers back home. While smelting the ore, I decided to work on my tower. I built a bridge so that I could walk into and out of the tower. I also built a floor so that I could walk into the building and not go directly to the stairs. I removed the main walkway that I used to get in the building as well. After doing that, I went back to the desert and began building rails back home. When it turned night, I was far enough along that I decided to wipe out the trees to make a nice path from my house to the desert. I put torches down too so mobs wouldn't spawn. On day 37, I was still placing down the rails and I unfortunately ran out. So I went back to the mine and continued to collect iron and gold. By the time I had gotten out, it had become night. So I went back to the desert to kill some mobs and get more XP. After smelting all the iron, I made more rails and continued placing them until day 38. I finally got the rails all the way to my base, so I went back to grab the first villager. However, I forgot that this is an older version of Minecraft where mobs don't go into mine carts, so I had to remove all the rails that I built. On day 39, I finished getting all the rails and went into the mines to get some diamonds to make myself feel better. I got a little over a stack of diamonds and decided to finally make a full suit of diamond armor. After making the armor, I didn't know what to do with the leftover iron armor, so I made item frames and hung them up. On day 40, I made an area for an underground minecart system. However, I found out I didn't go deep enough to avoid the ocean, so I had to build an outside so the water couldn't get in. I went as far as I could until day 41. I thought if I made a potion of water breathing, I would be able to finish a lot quicker. So I built a fishing rod and started fishing. After a while, I thought something was fishy, so I made a creative world to see if there was any pufferfish. Unfortunately, there are no pufferfish in this update, which means no water breathing potions. So I continued to build the tunnel the same way by placing sand so that I didn't have to unflood the tunnel, then surrounding it by cobblestone. I spent about 3 more days doing this. As a side note, I went down into the mine and a slime spawned in it, so I now have a slime chunk. I also removed the Nether portal because I didn't want to have to walk through it every time I went from the surface to the inside of the building. And now, here's the finished minecart tunnel. I spent day 45 getting a trading hall ready. I transported the first villager into the hall, however, I still had to get the other guy in the spot, which didn't take too terribly long. On day 46, I realized with that big project out of the way, I didn't have much to do. So I hung around the base until I thought that if I changed the interior of this building, it would look a lot nicer than the stone, sand, and dirt all around. On day 47, I started work on remodeling the interior by removing the middle floor of the halls and placing stone slabs down. After doing that, I took away the sides and placed stairs down. This allows for plenty of walking room, while also having a nice texture that the stairs add. I then added stone bricks as the floor for the center room, and having the stairs on the side of the walkway added for a nice transition between going on the walkway to the room. On day 48, I decided to add a different lighting than just torches. I went with redstone lamps, which require glowstone, so I placed back the nether portal in a spot that I think is better, but I'll probably move it later. I placed the redstone lamps, but I needed to power it. Unfortunately, this building is too high up, so if I placed any redstone torches, it would be quite obvious and ugly because it pokes out of the ground. So I had to figure out a different way to do it. After experimenting for a while, I landed on this design that allowed for redstone torches to be unseen from above ground. After taking out all the torches, this is what some of the rooms look like now. On day 49, I covered up the water with a stone replica of where the floor is underneath the ground. This allows for water to not come in while I'm trying to dig out the inside. But I think I'll add more to this later and make it 2 stories tall. I needed more redstone lamps, so I had to go back to the nether to find some more. Pots of glowstone that is easy to reach is hard to find, so I end up getting lost. I spent all of day 50 looking for the nether portal, but finally got it. On day 51, I finished placing the redstone torches and the redstone lamps. I also started to work on the walls, taking them down and placing stone bricks. On day 52, I decided I didn't like the stone bricks or any walls in the middle, so I took them all down and made the outside walls completely stone. On day 53, I started by taking out all the blocks, then I remade the floors that are on the side on the ceiling. I decided I didn't like the redstone lamps anymore, so I broke them all. On day 54, I placed glowstone to replace the lamps. I finished making the outer sides of the ceiling by placing stairs on the sides of the slabs. I then decided that I would remove everything that was above. On day 55, I started smelting sand to make glass. I also had some extra in a chest and started placing those. While waiting for the glass to smelt, I went mining. When I got back up, I had enough to finish this area. On day 56, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so I tried to make moving a little easier, so I placed a bunch of stairs on the sides. After that, I again didn't know what to do, so I went to the hills to try and find some emeralds. On day 57, I didn't find any emeralds, so I went back home and made more potions, so I could try and find another villager. At night, I went to the desert to look for more villagers and found none. On day 58, I went back to the villager area and made a new space for a villager. I used wooden gates so that when a zombie villager would come by and follow me, I could trap him in the area and turn him back once he was stuck. After that, I had finally gave in. I spent this whole video without using a bed, so I finally crafted and placed one on the roof of my tower. However, I want to enjoy one more day before I went to sleep, so I went to the hills biome to go mining for the rest of the day. On day 59, I was still mining, and I happened to come across a mine shaft. While exploring that, I came across a poison spider spawner, an area that opens up to a ravine, and I'd finally found an emerald. However, I explored most of the area, so I went home and slept for the first time in 59 days. Feeling well rested for day 60, I kind of fixed an area with the minecart, then I went back home and planted melon seeds that I found from the mine shaft. I found out that bone meal in this version instantly makes plants their fully grown version. I spent the rest of the night fighting mobs, and I finally found a zombie villager. So I brought him to the villager area, and it worked quite well. On day 61, I checked on the villager, and he was a butcher, and he had just the trade I needed. For 19 coal, he offered 1 emerald. Even though it was pretty much a scam, I was happy to get the emerald. I went back home and mined for coal. When I got what I wanted, I went to bed. On day 62, when I woke, I went back to the villagers and traded with the butcher until he didn't offer the coal anymore. With the farmer, I traded with him so that I could get some new trades, and he ended up offering nothing good, but it was still progress. Then I went to sleep. When I woke for day 63, I had a genius idea. I went to the hills biome and found a nice flat area and dug an 8x8 area out. I was going to keep doing this until the entire chunk was out from the surface to the bedrock. I spent the next 8 days doing this, mining, then sleeping, then mining again. On day 72, I had no idea what I was going to do now, so I decided to make another minecart entrance that mirrored the one I already built. After I got the area dug out, I spent the rest of the day mining to the edge of the world. Then I went back home and slept. On day 73, I decided to fill up the pond that I built the tower on. I kind of felt bad. It had been there since the beginning, and I'm covering it up. I had grown some kind of sentimental attachment to it, but I don't care, so I filled it up anyway. I was going to make the area around the tower better, so I had to push the area where the animals were kept. However, some of them got out, so I spent the night trying to get them back. Then I went to sleep. Day 74, I didn't like the entrance to my minecart area, so I came up with a good design and built it for both sides, which took me about 2 days. I think it looks pretty good. Day 76, I didn't like this dirt I had to look at every time I went up the stairs, so I thought a useful thing that I could make out of it would be a storage area. I spent this day digging the area out, then I went to sleep. On day 77, I started working on placing the siding and building a ceiling and adding flooring. Then I went back to sleep. On day 78, I finished placing chests, which took longer than I would have liked, because there had to be a gap between chests, and you can't crouch and place on a chest because you'll just open it. So I had to place stone and place the chest on those stones. On day 79, I started organizing the chests by putting cobblestone, ores, and mob drops in them. I also put item frames on the walls so I could tell which chest was what. On day 80, I was still organizing the chests, but I realized I needed to extend the room by 1, or else I wouldn't be able to place the item frames for these last chests. So I did that and went back to sleep. On day 81, I started working on the siding of the base, and dug down so that the ceiling I had built for the underground area was a walkway for the surface area. This took me a little over 3 days. At the end, I think it looks a lot better now. On day 85, my pickaxe was getting pretty low durability, so I would need to make a new one. But I wanted it to be enchanted, so I spent the next 2 days getting XP from the skeleton farm, mining quartz in the nether, and fighting mobs at night. Then, I finally got to level 30 and went home and slept. On day 87, I woke up and went to the enchantment table, and I got efficiency 4, and finally, fortune 3. Unfortunately, I didn't get unbreaking, so I thought if I got another pickaxe, I could enchant another and hopefully get efficiency 4, unbreaking 3, and I could take both to the anvil and combine them. But once it got night, I fought more mobs to get some XP and found another zombie villager. He turned into a priest, and had the same trade as the other priests, but instead of wanting 10 emeralds, he only wanted 7. It took all my strength not to kill this guy. On day 88, I mined out that huge underground chunk so more slime would spawn. However, my old pickaxe broke, so I used the new one. I spent 2 days working on this. At the night of day 89, I went to the desert and found another zombie villager. On day 90, the villager turned out to be a librarian, and he had a good trade for paper, so I planted a bunch of sugarcane at home and made some paper. I then traded it with the librarian, and he started to offer emeralds for books. I thought I would go to the stronghold and find the library and trade him the books, but when I went, I couldn't find the library at all. So I went back to the surface and fought mobs for XP. And finally, I don't know why it took 90 days, but a zombie I killed dropped a potato. But it gets better. Right after, another zombie I killed dropped an iron ingot. I must have been very lucky that day. On day 91, I slept and planted the potatoes and bone mealed them until I had about 2 stacks. I spent the rest of the day getting XP from the skeleton farm. On day 92, I finally got 30 levels and made another pickaxe with everything I needed, efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3. But I took it to the anvil with my other pickaxe. It said it was too expensive. To make myself feel better, I mined more of the underground chunk with my new pickaxe. Then I slept. On day 93, I needed to blow off some steam from the pure anger I had because I couldn't combine my 2 pickaxes. So I went back to the hills biome and started to mine out another chunk. This time I did it a lot faster, and it only took me 5 days. On day 99, I finally found the library at the stronghold and got a bunch of books and traded with the villagers until I got a trade for an enchanted diamond chestplate. Unfortunately, I couldn't use a used chestplate, so I had to make another one and got the trade. I can't believe we're almost done. Just thinking about it makes me want to shed a tear for all the things that we've done. I didn't do much this day, so I'd like to go over everything I did in my 99 days. I built an awesome tower, an underground base, a minecart track, an underground chunk, a villager trading area, 2 chunks taken out from the surface to bedrock, and a collection of great dogs. For day 100, I said goodbye to my dogs, crafted and placed a cake next to my bed, and went to the stronghold and jumped in the portal. When I spawned, I was on a platform of obsidian. To get down, I MLG water bucketed, which didn't work very well. I climbed up the pillars of obsidian and took down the caged crystals. Then I came down and shot the other ones with my bow. Then I went to the center to fight the ender dragon, and I finally got him. He dropped a ton of XP, and I got 79 levels from it. After I got the levels, I got the dragon egg and jumped into the portal to go home. When I spawned back, I ate most of the cake and saved and exited the world.